Vyom Haya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hare Om Tat Chat. So, we were in the verse number 19 in the Ramakrishna Tika of the Panchadashi, the second chapter. And here, the sloka was running like this: Idam sarvam pura srishter ekameva advitiyakam sadeva asin nama rupe nasam ityaruner vachaha. So the Chandogya Upanishad, when he is discussing with his son, he's saying Sadeva Swamya Idamagra Asit Ekameva Advitiyam. The reality was undivided and it was one. And Idam Sarvam Pura Srishtehe Prak. Before the creation started, it will also be explained that if creation started, diversity came into being. How are you trying to explain to us that everything is one? Because now it has already become diverse. So Vedanta will explain that this creation is not absolutely a fact which is true or false. This is Vivartavada. This is more of a projection. So whatever was unified suddenly started appearing as if it's all divided and diverse, and one started appearing in multiples. And we already have done this before. The way suddenly you see the rainbow, the way one sun gets reflected in a million small tiny mirrors and appear as a million suns. Similarly, that one Sad Brahma appears in multiples, appears as diverse, but it nevertheless remains the one and the same thing. It's like you enter into that magic room where there are thousands and thousands of mirrors all around on the walls. It's a circular room, and then you see your images, and there are millions of you there. How many are you there? You're just one. But it appears as if you are in great numbers present in that room because you can see yourself looking at yourself from all sides, all corners. Because there are multiple reflections, multiple images are constructed, you look at them, but they have no reality of their own. These are all reflections, and that will be made clearer as we proceed. So idam sarvam srishtehe pura prak ekameva advitiyakam sadeva asin nama rupe na astam. Nama and rupa didn't exist. So essentially creation is appearance of the same truth with name and form. Creation, there is nothing real or unreal about it. It's essentially assumption, names and forms. It's all labeling exercise on the same truth. And then the multiplicity becomes evident. That is what Vedanta is explaining here. Then let's have a bit of a discussion on how many kinds of Vedas are there. And this is a powerful shloka. It's always there, so I'll share this sloka that you can have a look at it, and then I'll again come back, but I'll keep sharing the screen so that the whole thing doesn't get so you can have a look at this. Let's do the ucharanam of the shloka. Vrikshasya swagata veda putra paspa phala divihi vrikshantara sajatiyo vijatiyah siladitaha. Vrikshasya swagato vedaha. What is swagata vedaha? It's the veda between whole and parts. Like a person is there, and that person is different from what? That person is different from his hands and legs, his own hands and legs. It's different. Therefore, that is what he's explaining. Vrikshasya swagata vedaha patra pushpa phala divihi. With the help of patra, pushpa and phala, the fruits, the leaves, and the fruits, they are different from the tree. That is swagata veda, whole and parts, the distinction. Vrikshantara sajatiyo. So you have one tree, tree A, tree B, tree C. Same tree, mango trees or banana trees, whatever you say, or apple orchard. So you have apple trees. So you have all trees are giving you apples, and yet they are all different from each other. They belong to one category, one class of plants, and yet they are different because numbers are different. They're located at different places. So what is that? Brukshantara sajatiyo. If you have another plant of the same genus, you call it a sajatiya veda. They are like human beings. Many human beings are there. They are all different from one another. Vijatiya siladitaha. What is Vijatiya Veda? When the difference is on account of your belonging to different categories. That is what is called Vijatiya Veda. So the apple is different from a banana, and the banana is different from a pineapple. But they are all fruits. As fruits, they are similar, or maybe a piece of wood or a cell phone is different from a computer. They're all electronic gadgets. Or a bucket of water is different from a flower bouquet. So these are all different. These are Vijatiya Veda. Similarly, the tree is different from what? The tree is different from stones, pebbles, earth, right? That is Vijatiya Veda on account of the tree belonging to a separate class of things. Okay, now we'll go to the commentary, and therefore, for some time, I'll just hide this space so that it doesn't create any disturbance. Let's go then to the distraction, the commentary. So, what he's trying to say here is Vrikshasya patra puspa phaladivihi swa avavaihi swagata vedo bhavati. This is Kalyana Piyushavaki. That is the, avayava avayavi bheda. That is what is called swagata veda. And when you look at vrikshantara, another tree, tad jatigata vrikshantarad vedaha sajatiyaha. So you have the same jati of vriksha, that is a plant, and then one plant is different from another. And what is vijatiya? Siladitaha, siladi jatyantara. Then it's different. Jatyantara vastvader vijatiyo vedaha. The stone and the plant don't belong to the same class of objects, and therefore they are Vijatiya Veda. Tatha vrikhyadishu vedatrayam upalabhyate. So in trees and everything, you find three kinds of Vedas. In this whole samsara, tatha sadvustana praptam nama rupa asankheya akarihi apaditam vedatrayam. If you look at all the bhava padarthas in the samsara, the material objects. Sometimes there is Sajatiya Veda, sometimes there is Vijatiya Veda, sometimes there is Swagata Veda, whole and parts. Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Swagata Rupam, Aikya Avadharana Dvaita Pratisethehi. Then how do you establish everything is one, Brahman? How do you establish monism, the Vedantic monism or non-dualism? They would say, look, try to understand this. These Vedas which appear to be real are only apparent. So you have to do nishedha, you refute them, go beyond them, see through them. Aikyam ekatvam avadharanam eva artha dvaitasya anyavastunaha pratishedhaha. You are looking at this diversity in the material world. The Shastrakara is saying, yes, they do appear as all different from each other. And if you look at the world of material objects, what do you see? You look at even in your emotions. You can categorize your emotions as sadness and happiness and excitement and depression. There are different categories. The Bhedas are there. These Bhedas are superficial. They are only apparent. They are not fundamental. They are not ultimate. They are surmountable, not insurmountable. You can transcend them. You can see through them. And if you are able to do it, Then you can do Dvaita Nivarana. You can refute, reject, go beyond these dualities and establish your consciousness and the ultimate unified non-dual truth. And Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. You can establish your Satchidananda Rupa Param Brahma. You can establish your mind at that level. एवं अनात्मनि भेदत्रयं प्रदर्श्य सद्वस्तुनि अपि प्रसक्तं तत् भेदत्रयं श्रुतिः पदत्रयेण निवारयति इत्याह. So you have these three kinds of differences which are evident in the material universe. However, if we pay serious attention and we look at the Shruti, the Upanishads, they would explain to us that these dualities, these multiplicities and diversities, which capture our attention, which delude us, and we are glued to this reality. Someone is studying physics, somebody is studying chemistry. They're all real stuff, isn't it? You're saying, yeah, these are all real, but not fundamental. The ultimate truth is beyond all these so-called truths. The ultimate reality is beyond all these realities. These all realities, which appear to be genuinely diverse, are not so in fundamental sense. And that is what is going to be explained to us in the next verse. Let's look at, and I'm again sharing that, the next sloka so that you can access it. Look at the sloka. तथा सद्वस्तुनो भेद त्रयं प्राप्तं निवार्यते ऐक्यावधारण द्वैत प्रतिषेधे त्रिभिक्रमात्. That is what we discussed already in the commentary, and the sloka reads like this: तथा सद्वस्तुनः भेद त्रयं यत् प्राप्तं तं निवार्यते. All these Vedas, three kinds of Vedas, Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Swagata Veda, that you seem to accept as fundamentally real, are real in a very phenomenal sense. So you would be able to refute them. Aikya avadharana dvaita pratisedhehi trivihi kramat. So you would go and examine. You have three types of Vedas: Swagata Veda, Sajatiya Veda, and Vijatiya Veda. So let's be like scientists, let's be good logicians, let's be doubting Thomases and look at whether actually these Vedas exist or they don't. So Shastra is absolutely open, and they are not scared of a good discussion or argumentation. And therefore, they would say, absolutely, there is no problem. We can have a genuine discussion, sir. We are absolutely not scared of any threat whatsoever from your side. We would have a very good discussion. And that is what he's trying to explain here. And therefore, we will have a look at it. Now, we would therefore, before I go there, we will look at a little interesting commentary on this. What is he trying to hint at right here is that Brahman is Advitiya, means it is without a second. Okay. However, as per the realists in Indian systems, we have some logicians. They are called realists. Realists, why? Because they accept this fundamental truth of the phenomenal reality. So they are the Nyayayikas. They are realists. So they categorize all things to have differences called Swagata Veda, Sajatiya Veda, and Vijatiya Veda, because they are trying to create nomenclature for these objective realities. And all these are now first categorized as for the Nyaya Shastra. What is Swagata Veda? Like the tree is different from its flowers and fruits and leaves and etc., the trunk. And then Sajatiya, like one tree, is different from another tree. Vijatiya Veda is like one tree is different from a river or a mountain or earth or sky. Vijatiya Veda. And therefore, one by one, all of us will be refuted. First, let's look at the Swagata Veda. Swagata Veda is what? Avayava, Avayavi Veda, whole and parts. Now, for me to have some distinction vis-a-vis my hands and legs, yeah, fine. Why? Because I have a physical framework. So I have hands which look different from who am I? What about Brahman? Does the Brahman have a physical framework? It doesn't have. So where is whole and parts? If there is a material framework for Brahman, then you can say this part is Brahman, this part is Jagat. This is whole and parts, but no such thing at all exists in the Brahman. So Shankara Bhagavata Pada in the Brahma Sutra, he refutes the Swagata Veda by saying, Nahi niravayavasya avikarinaha vastunaha kaschi Swagata Vedo sambhavati. What do you mean by distinction or duality based on an analytical separation of the whole from the parts, or distinction, analytical distinction of the whole from the parts? Is there a whole? Does it have any parts? It's niravayava. It doesn't have any parts. It's the absolute subtlest reality without any material frame. It doesn't have a material frame. It is beyond matter. All material reality emanates out of it, but that is not material. The Brahman is not a material reality. Therefore, there cannot be any whole and parts business. We have multiverses. This is part of this Milky Way, this galaxy. Fine. That's in physics, cosmology. In the Vedantic cosmology, everything ultimately is a pure field of consciousness. And that consciousness is not material. It's non-material. No whole and parts business. And therefore, there is no Swagata Veda. Remember, logically, any temptation to accept duality, diversity, multiplicity is being refuted here. Therefore, he's saying, Yataha Brahma ekam eva advitiyam, because that is what is mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad 6:2-1. Iti shrutehe tatra na swagata vedaha na sajatiya vedaha na vijatiya vedaha. Shankaracharya refutes one by one. You know how he will refute sajatiya veda? He'll say, okay, do you have two Brahmans? For there to be Sajatiya Veda of Brahman, you must be able to show me another Brahman. Lord Krishna, does he have a Sajatiya Veda? You have another Krishna? Parameshwar, Lord Shiva has another Shiva? What do you mean by Sajatiya Veda? There is no second. That means you don't have this absolute truth consciousness, absolute that, this truth and bliss. That's Satchidananda Swarupa. Satchit Ananda Swarupa. Truth, consciousness, and bliss. That absolute reality doesn't have a second. It encompasses all. It cannot be omnipresent if there's a second, because the second will have some space of his own. We are saying it's omnipresent. It's omniscient. If you're imagining another Brahman, then this Brahman will not know what the other Brahman knows. And if it knows, that Brahman will become superfluous, because that will not be omniscient. Because this Brahman will know what that Brahman is doing. That Brahman will be like a clone. It will not have that original omniscience which we are attributing to this Brahman. No Sajatiya Veda. Is there any Vijatiya Veda? You say, yeah, I can prove there is Vijatiya Veda. Why? Because Shankaracharya says Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya. Jagan is Mithya. This is a lie. It's different from Brahman. No, that's not how it's explained. Jagan Mithya is not to accept its reality in any absolute sense. For Vijatiya Veda to be established, you have to show me there is X and there is Y which is of a different class, but it is also bhava padartha. It belongs to the same class of existential reality. When I'm saying, like for example, you're waking up and you see one reality, and there is a dream reality. The dream reality is different from this reality. But remember this, the dream reality has no fundamental existence in comparison to this waking state reality. It's just an imagined thing. Similarly, in the Brahma Jnana, when we are having that absolute consciousness, when you establish, this phenomenal reality has no existence. It's essentially with names and forms. You go to the deep sleep state, where does this whole universe vanish? It's not there. You are there. The truth is there. Existence is there. That Sat is there. But the details are not there. The details are a superimposition. These are names and forms. Isn't it? Therefore, these Sajatiya, Vijatiya, and Swagata Veda are refuted in the Brahman. Okay? And if you look at Tatha Sadvastuno Vedatraya Praptam Nivaryate, therefore, all these three Vedas which are available in logical philosophy of India, in the Nyaya Shastras, they are all being refuted here one by one, looking at the Shruti or the Upanishadic sentences. How do they go? Aikya avadharanena yatha shrutena ekam eva iti pratigya swagata vedasya abhavaha. Aikya avadharanena. It's oneness that you're accepting in the light of the Upanishadic statements. And the moment you're talking about oneness, you're not talking about a one which has a physical framework and therefore whole and part. Distinction is refuted, is imaginary. Similarly, Dvaita Pratisethena, that is the next step. We have to meditate on the oneness. We have to refute the dualities. Dvaita Pratisethena, this is the second step. Advitiyam iti vachanena sajatiya vedasya abhava. Because you say Advitiya, there's no second. Ekoham dvinasti, there's no second. That means there is no sajatiya veda. Swagata veda is refuted, it's niravayava. Sajatiya veda is refuted because there is no second. Advitiya. It's one, therefore no swagata veda. It is Advitiya, there is no second, therefore no sajatiya veda. And then Sarva Vastva Abhava Pratigya. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahman here. First, there is a Sarva word is there. So there is an apparent acceptance of the details. And then there is a refutation of the details. How? Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahman. The details that you see as diverse and in multiples, my boy, please understand and accept that everything is only Brahman, appearing as different things. Because the sun rays which appear to assume different colors, isn't it? It's during when you see the rainbow in the sky. It's just light of the sun. But then you see the spectrum becoming apparent to you, and you see that's real. Yeah, that appears and disappears. Similarly, the samsara appear and disappear. What is the fundamental substratum? Is that pure consciousness. Okay, and in this next verse, now I'll just go to the next verse to again graduate to the next verse. Sato na vayavaha sankhya's tadan sasyani rupanat nama rupena tasyangsav tayor adyapya nudbhavat. Sataha na avayavaha sankhyaha. The Sat, the absolute truth, it doesn't have any parts because we just had a discussion. They are niravayava. It's not a material truth that we are talking about. It's not a material object. Sataha, of that absolute truth, na avayavaha, there are no parts. Sankhyaha, you should not even doubt that. Tad angsasya anirupanat, so far it's not even established when there was no Srishti, what do you mean by whole and parts? This whole imagination that there's a whole and there are parts. Remember, there are different interesting thinkers, even in Vedanta, who admit this explanation that there is a whole and there are parts. Ramanujacharya, Vishishtadvaitavada. They all say that we are all tiny fractions of the absolute Lord Krishna. There is aprithatva siddhi. We have no independent existence. But this whole reality, the Srishti, is a physical body. And he doesn't lose anything. What about the pain and pleasure we experience? Does Lord Krishna experience them? No. How does that work? He has his own ontological explanation of it. That is their own theological explanation. Where there is aprithatva siddhi, we have no existence of our own. They will say, the hand doesn't do anything for itself. It does everything for you. Your eyes don't do anything for themselves. They don't read anything. They don't see anything for their own sake. No, they do it for you. Sanghatasya pararthatvad. Everything, the physical frame, the mental frame you have, it's being done. It's for the Purusha. It's for the person. And who is the person, cosmic person here? Is Lord Krishna. So we should be all living our lives for him. In fact, we do. We don't realize it. And that's what is our ignorance. So they have their own understanding of how they want to go about it. There are quite a couple of other schools of thought where the jivas are considered to be tiny fractions. It's like specks of fire emanating from a big flame. And that speck of fire has no real burning power. The fire has real burning power. There is that Aishwarya in all of us, but in mini, micro, nano fractions. And the absolute Lord is the center of everything. And you should have that ultimate saranagati, because that devotional surrender is the one which opens up your consciousness to that realization that you have no independent existence apart from the absolute. It's a devotional, theistic Vedanta, but it's the hard-hitting Shankara Vedanta, which is extremely truth-oriented, very logical. And some people say it's too intellectual. It's very dry intellectual logic. But he's not compromising on anything. He wrote a lot of sutras. He wrote a lot of emotional hymns for Lord Krishna and Shiva and Devi. But now he's talking about the ultimate truth. And there's no compromise with the truth. He tells it as it is. And therefore he's saying, Sataha na avayavaha sankhyaha tadangsasya anirupanatvad. No, it's not been even established. Nama rupe natasya angsho. Nama in rupa. Gold is there. And then it has become a necklace. Is it a vikar of gold? No, gold remains gold. Can you buy a necklace without buying gold? Those names and forms do not become parts of gold. A golden necklace, if you say, the parts are also gold, the whole is also gold. You cannot say Nama and Rupa are avayavas, are parts of the whole. These are all names and forms. That's it. So Nama Rupe na tasya brahmanaha angsho. They are not parts of the whole. There was no whole as such. Tayor adyapi anudbhavat. Because they have not yet been born. When gold is gold, what do you mean by part and whole? There were no Nama Rupa during the Pralayavastha. That is what he's trying to hint at. And now the way we did other slokas, we'll also go to the commentary, but I'm not displaying the long commentaries on this board in order to sort of make it, clutter-free. So he's saying, Samahiti, Nama Rupayoho Sad avayatvam king nasyad iti asankya srishtihi pura tayor abhavat na tad ansatvam ityaha nameti. He's saying, look here, my boy, before the creation took place, this Nama Rupa didn't exist. But the truth did exist, the Brahman did exist. And therefore, why do you imagine about Nama Rupa? They don't mean anything. Okay? So, what is this? Advitiyatam Tarka Sastra Anusarena Pratipadyate. Now he is going to take the challenge. You know, there are two kinds of players. If you have played tennis or table tennis, there are two kinds of players. One kind of player, they stick to their strengths. So you are a very good player of spin. So you go on playing that. So you stick to your game plan. And there are even smarter ones who are ready to take the game to your territory. They are ready to play like you and defeat in your own game. They are smarter ones. So Bhagwan Bhashyakara here takes the battle to the enemy territory. What he does, he accepts the categorization of Vedas by the Nyayikas, uses their own language, uses their own premises to defeat their conclusions. Very powerful. And therefore, he will refute the Swagata Vedaha, Sajatiya Vedaha, and Vijatiya Vedaha. Right? And he's saying, what is Swagata Vedaha? Ekasya vastunaha antargateshu angeshu vedaha is one object, and tad antargata angaha santi, angani santi, there are certain parts, and there is a difference between the whole and the parts. That is called Swagata Veda. Yatha vrikhyasya patra puspa faladivihi ekatra samavetanam api paraswaram bhinnatvam drishyate. These are all together, plants and flowers and the trunk and branches. They're together. And yet there is a distinction between them, the part and the whole. Sajatiya Vedaha nama tasyeva jatir antargatanam prithak vastunam Vedaha. The same category, same class of things, and there is a distinction between them. There are 5 boys. They have different names. They are studying different subjects. They belong to one class. So what? There's a lot of distinction. That is what he's mentioning. Yatha vrikhyasya Vedaha. They're looking at another tree, okay, of the same category. Vijatiya Vedaha nama, what is that? Anya Jatiya Vastuvihi Vedaha Yatha vrikhyasya silaya ghatenava. You look at a pot, or you look at a piece of stone or a river. So these are the Vijatiya Vedaha. Now this he refutes. And this we have already done. He's saying, Nahi niravayavasya avikarinaha vastunaha kaschi swagata vedaha sambhavati. You know what is swagata veda? It's, imagine the egg which is there in the mother's embryo, then it assumes a physical form, and therefore we are saying these are the hands and legs of the baby. There is some real vikara. Some modification happens there. But the Atma is avikari. There is no real vikara. There is no real modification. There is real modification in other Vedantic schools like Brahma Parinama Vada. They accept. Okay? But in the Sankara Vedanta, it is called Vivarta Parinama Vada. There is Parinama, there is a consequence. This consequence is only in a certain way, only apparent. It's only phenomenal. It's a projection. No real modification. What is the example they give? They say, okay, you take a stick and dip it in water and it bends. There is nothing. The stick remains straight as it was before. But it appears as if that particular stick has bent. When you see a snake in a rope, it's a rope. Because of darkness or lack of adequate light, you suspect that to be a snake in a dark room. That snake is a creation of your perception, the way you look at it. There is no real snake. That is Vivarta Parinama Vada. Na tasya kaschid patirasti loke. So he's saying that this is Svetasatra Upanishad 6.9 ityuktehe. So therefore, absolutely, there is no one which is like him. There is no one. So there is no Sajatiya Veda. Vijatiya Veda pinasti. Yataha sarvam khalu idam brahma. Chandogya Upanishad, we have already discussed this. Okay? And then Aikya Avadharanena yathashrutena, and then dveta pratishedhena, and finally what? Sarva vastu abhava pratigya. So this is how you focus on the unity, you refute the dualities, and then look at the whole diversity as a projection of the same unified reality. That is how you accept the unity of everything. And what is that Atma? Look at the verse number now in the I will again share that and we'll go there. Give me 1 second, I'll share that text and go there. Next verse. Nama rupodbhavasyeva srishti tva srishtitah pura nayatur udbhava tasmat tanniransam yatha vyat. Nama rupa udbhavasya eva srishtitvat. Srishti kya hai? What is this creation? The avyakrita becomes vyakrita. The unmanifest becomes manifest. And what is this manifestation? Manifestation is essentially assumption of names and forms. The Lord enters into all of us and then assigns us names and forms. The Supreme Consciousness enters into the physical frame, then assumes a name called an animal, a bird, a river, a plant. The Supreme Consciousness doesn't undergo any changes. A lot of people have a lot of emotional problems with Sankara Vedanta. One Vaishnava guru, very compassionate and nice guy. Long back, I used to live in a temple in Mumbai about 2 decades back. For a while, I stayed in Bombay. Instead of a hotel, I stayed in an ashram. And he was very disturbed looking at a lot of Sankara books in my room. And he said, why are you reading all this? He was a Mayavedi. And he said, Mayavadi Krishna Aparadhi. He said he is essentially misbehaving with Lord Krishna. He's committing a lot of sins. Why? Because he's accepting all this reality, this whole creation, which is the creation of Lord Krishna, is delusional. Isn't it refutation of Lord Krishna's supreme power? But Shankaracharya never did that actually. He wrote a wonderful commentary on Vishnu Sahasranama. A lot of people haven't been familiar with it. And a lot of people who mentioned that the Jagannath Astaka is written by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you talk to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they will say, no, this is written by Shankaracharya. Why should Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ever write Haratvam Sansara Vipadima Param? Why should he say that? Sansara rejection is Sankara Vedanta. Shankaracharya has written that. He was a great devotee of Lord Jagannath. He was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. He was a great devotee of Devi. So he talked about the Supreme One, and yet for Loka Sangraha, in order to motivate us to be spiritual where we are, he did encourage a lot of devotional practices while emphasizing that the essential orientation, Rite Jnanam Na Kaivalyam, for liberation, for Satya Mukti, is very important for us to remain truth-oriented, cling to truth, and do vichar. For dhyana, you can do Salagrama, Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, and all that is wonderful. But to get to the Param Brahman, who is beyond all names and forms, you have to travel through all this, not a problem, but the ultimate truth. You should have the courage to look at the Advaita Vedanta. Even the Upanishads say, Na bala hinena labhya. This is not for the weak-minded people. If you are emotionally weak, okay, you can do Bhakti Yoga, not a problem. In fact, Bhakti Yoga is very powerful. It purifies the mind. It's very important. It's the glue which holds things together. It's like that lubricant which enables the machine to function. It's very important. Without Bhakti, all other things will not work. Madhusudana Saraswati has done it in a wonderful way. However, the ultimate truth is ultimate truth, and that has to be accepted, and we have to deal with it. Therefore, he's saying, Nama Rupo Udbhavasya Eva Srustitvat. There is nothing called Srishti, it's only appearance of names and forms. That is Srishti. Srishtitaha Pura. Na tayor udbhava tasmat, and before the Srishti, Nama Rupa did not exist. Like you are in deep sleep. What kind of names and forms are there in your consciousness? Nothing. Is pure consciousness. Absolutely, there's nothing. Similarly, in the Pralayavastha, there's no duality. Everything is in seed form. All our Papa Punyas have to be there. Of course, there are a lot of problems in the cosmological, ontological explanation of the Pralayavastha and Shishtiyavastha by the Advaita Vedantis, and others have a lot of questions to ask. No particular philosophical framework is free from philosophical challenges. And that is the nature of our intellectual tradition, that we love to discuss, to sort of differ from each other and embrace each other. So he's saying, Ramo Nama Rupa Udbhavasya Eva Srishtitva. Srishti means Udbhava of Nama and Rupa. Srishtitaha Pura, not Tayor Udbhava. Therefore, before Srishti, they didn't exist. That is what we call Pralaya. Tasmad, therefore, Nir Angsam Yatha Vyat. What is Vyat? Akasha, Gaganavat. Does it have any parts? It doesn't have any parts. What about Ghatakasha, Patakasha, cell phone Akasha? Akasha is space. You can say space in your house, space in your country. This is Indian space, that is Pakistani space, that is Bhutanese space, this is Chinese space. Yeah, these are all adjectives. Space remains space. These are appendices, these are attributions, these are ways of describing that universal space as Indian sky, as Pakistani sky, as European sky. There is just one sky. Therefore, that is how the Swagata Veda is being refuted here. Okay? Now, having said that, now I'll go and I'll sort of withdraw this particular page and I'll go to the commentaries. So, Nama Rupeti Phalitamaha Tasmaditi Atra Ayam Prayoga, Ramakrishna writes, Sadvastu Swagata Veda Sunyam Bhavitum Arhati. The Sadvastu Brahman is without Swagata Veda. Swagata Veda Sunyam Bhavitum Arhati. It deserves to be called Swagata Veda Rahitaha. How? Niravayavatvat. It doesn't have any avayava. It doesn't have a physical frame. Gaganavaditi. What is the drishtanta? What is the example? Give me one. He's saying, look at the sky. We keep dividing the sky. This is stratosphere. This is this sphere, that sphere. This is just one sky. Gaganavaditi. That is how he sort of immediately brings to a discussion. And then we can look at a bit of elaboration. We have already done it. We can do a little more of elaboration here. You know, this Niravayavatvad Brahmanaha Avayava Kalpana Ghatavat Parinamaha Na Utpadyate. Because it's like Gaganavat, it's like Akasha. It doesn't have any physical limitation. It's all pervasive. It's without a physical frame, and therefore, Avayava Kalpanaya, the way you want to have Swagata Veda by imagining whole and parts. Why? Because you're confusing the Brahman with a ghata, like a pot. Right? So it has different aspects to it, different parts to it. No, but Brahman is not like that. Parinamaha na utpadyate. It doesn't happen there. Ataha Brahma na avayava mayam. It doesn't have any parts. Na tad angsamayam. Therefore, it's not an assembly or conglomeration or bringing together of several parts like you have any other physical object. Yataha tad angsasya anirupanat. Because what are the parts of the Brahman? Can you show me in any Upanishad where it is said the Brahman has this? Of course, there is a lot of discussion. This is the Adhyaropa Pavada. In certain Upanishads, they will say that the three aspects of this absolute reality is all Sukshma, is only one part of it, which is Sthula Jagat. That is whole and part. You can say, no, that's not how it is. These are all explained in the Upanishad Bhashyas. So there is no angsha. Iti kalpana kevalam avayavatve sambhavati brahmatu akhanda satta matram. It is akhanda satta. It has no whole and part behavior, no such functionality, no such attribution possible. Yasya bhaga nirnayo na sambhavati. You cannot split it into parts. You cannot separate the sky into different parts. Na nama rupe na tasya angso. Therefore, the shloka says it doesn't have any parts at all. Why? He's saying Sadeva Somya idamagra asid ekam eva advitiyam. Look at that shloka of Chandogya Upanishad and try to accept that Srishtihi kevalam nama rupa. Okay, prapancha vikara rupa natu satta swarupa parinamaha. There is no fundamental modification of the Brahman. It's all nama rupatmaka vikaraha, ways of describing it. But they look different. Yes, I never said they don't look different. You lie down on your bed and you go to sleep, and then you are in Africa. And then, because you watched a lot of National Geographic Wild channel and you see a lot of animals. You remember that lovely book we read as children, Alice in the Wonderland. Similarly, you have a conversation with elephants and you're playing badminton with lions. You can all fancy all that in your dream. They don't exist. But then you're engaging with them in your dream. Similarly, the phenomenal reality is one we are engaging with. However, ultimately, they do not exist. What exists is the pure consciousness. Then we'll go to the next verse, and I'll just open that. We have time. We can do one more verse. Then what is the Swagata Veda is refuted. Now Sajatiya Veda is going to be refuted. Sadantaram sajatiyam na vailakshana varjanat nama rupopadhi bhedam bina naiva sato vida. Sad antaram sajatiyam na vailakshanya varjanat. Sad is Brahman, antaram, other than Brahman, because you're talking about Sajatiya Veda, means there are 2 or 3 or 4 objects or entities of the same class. That is Sajatiya Veda. Sad antaram sajatiyam na asti. Okay, you have to split that sloka there. Na sadantaram sajatiyam sambhavati. There is no Sajatiya entity which is different from the Brahman. Why? By lakshana varjanat. You have to show me there is something which is different from Brahman in a fundamental sense, not in a phenomenal sense. Then I would accept that there is a Sajatiya Veda. There are 2 different entities. There is one Lord Shiva in Kailasha. There is another Lord Shiva sitting in Ujjain. And there is a third Lord Shiva sitting in Bhubaneswar Lingaraja temple. And 4th one in Trimbakeshwar. That's because you are watching these TV channels in the morning, Dibya Darshan. No, these are all not Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is one. These are all symbols, pratikopasana, symbolic representation of the absolute conscious entity called Parameshwara. He has taken one name called Shiva. Therefore, that is not acceptable. Okay? So, sadantaram sajatiyam na vailakshana varjanat nama rupo padivedam bina naiva sato vida. And then, nama rupa upadivedam bina. The Bheda you are imagining is essentially in the light of name and form. It's same water. You're calling this is the Rishikesh Ganga. Where did you take a bath? I had a bath at Prayagraj Ganga. And where did you take a bath? I had a bath at Ganga Sagar. It's all same Ganga water, isn't it? We are giving same Nama Rupa, Upadhitmaka Bheda. That is not real Bheda. Therefore, he's saying Nama Rupa Padhivedam Bina Na Eva Sato Vida. There is no genuine, fundamental, realistic distinction from the Brahman. Because there, wherever you're looking at it, there is no bilakshana, there is no separateness in terms of fundamental attributes that you can associate them with. And therefore, these are all ultimately one and the same thing. Now, in our own style, now we'll go to the commentary, and therefore I will be withdrawing this particular thing. So let's look at the commentary, how it sort of comes out. Sad antaramiti nanu. Now, before this, he's saying, Ma bhut swagata vedaha. Okay, I agree with you. There is no swagata veda. Why? Brahmana niravayavatvad. Because it is niravayava. There is no swagata veda. I agree. No whole and part. Sajatiya vedaha king na syad. Why shouldn't be there sajatiya veda? Like between two sons of a same father, or two human beings, or two dogs and cats, whatever. King nasyat, why shouldn't be there? Iti asankhya tat sajatiyam sad antaramiti vaktavyam. If you're saying there is a sajatiya veda of the Brahman, you have to get me another Brahman. Sad antaram. Other than Brahman, you must be able to show me another Brahman. Na tan nirupayutum sakyate. Can you show me, my dear? You can't. Sataha vailakshana bhavat ityaha. Of the Brahman, you cannot have another which is fundamentally different. So sadantaram sajatiyam na vailakshanya varjanat nama rupa padhivedam bina neva sato vida. Without taking names and forms, nama rupatmaka upadhi bhedam bina, there is nothing which is not Brahman. Upadhi Vedana, yes, Brahma is different from Vishnu, Vishnu is different from Lord Shiva, and Ma Bhagavati is different from all them, and now she will come home as Ma Kali on the Diwali. It's one and the same. In Devi Bhagavat, Bhagavati says, Sarvam khalu evaham nanyadasti sanatana. To whom? Lord Vishnu. Sarvam khalu eva aham. My boy, little boy, look at me. I'm your divine mother. And everything is me. Na anyad asti sanatana. There's nothing other than me, which is nitya and sanatana. What about this whole diversity? They appear and disappear. What about we, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara? Mother smiles and says, you my children. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful text. This is called henotheism, in which each path will show the ultimate reality using the name of that particular tradition, accepting unity without refuting names and forms adopted, accepted, followed by any other tradition. The Saivite would say Brahman is one. The Vaishnavite will say the Brahman is one. The Shakta would say Devi of Brahman is one. All of them are saying. So Narada is asking Mother Divine, okay, now tell me, you are Purusha or Prakriti? Are you male or female? She laughs and she explains, are you Shaguna or are you Nirguna? She smiles, says, I'm Nirguna during Pralaya and I'm Shaguna during Srishti. In order to create things, I become Ishvara. I have to assume power, name, form. I'm Saguna. And then I'm Nirguna. I'm both. I'm both Purusha and Prakriti. I'm everything. Everything you can think about, everything that you can relate to, everything is me. It's me, it's my Leela, it's my game. Accept it. Therefore, he's saying, Nama Rupopadi Vedam Bina Na Eva Sataha Vida. There is nothing else which is distinguishable from the Param Brahman, the Supreme Consciousness, without taking recourse to names and forms. All Indians are one. Then you have this is from Andhra, I'm a Tamil, I'm a Telugu, I'm a Keralite, I'm a Maharashtrian, I'm a Bengali, I'm a Oriya, and then ultimately India, Pakistan, blah, 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 and then human beings, and then we are all living beings. And then we are all members of the cosmos. You enhance your consciousness, go up, and all names and forms slowly lose their grip over our consciousness. And then we reach that supreme level of self-awareness where we are not even describing ourselves as we or I. There is only that isness. And that is the central message of the Vedanta. Therefore, he's saying, Sad antaramiti, nanu ghatasatta padasatta iti sato vedaha pratibhasate. Okay, sir, you are a Vedanti, I got no problem. Don't you accept one thing, ghatasatta and patasatta, isness of ghata, isness of pata. The phone is, the computer is, the table is, the chair is. The presence of the chair, presence of the table, presence of the phone, presence of the laptop, aren't they all different presences? That is the question. It appears like that. He's saying, Ityasankhya, Ghatakasa Mathakasa Vada Opadika Vedo Na Sato Bhati Ityaha. My boy, you're looking at Mathakasha, there is an ashram, the space in that ashram. Ghatakasa, the space within a particular pot, a jar. These are Nama Rupa Upadi Vedam iti. These are all distinctions with names and forms. Akasa remains the same. Atrayam prayogaha sadvastu sajatya veda rahitam bhavitum arati. That Param Brahma, that Sadvastu is free from fundamental differences. With only names and forms, it can have Sajatya Veda Bhavitum. So it is Sajatya Veda Rahita. Upadi Paramarsham Antarena Abhibhavyamana Vedatvad. Without taking recourse to what? Upadi Paramarsha. Some kind of a labeling exercise you have to do. Without that, everything is one. And therefore, this Veda is not fundamental. Gaganamaditi, like the sky, is just one. And here you're saying this is Indian sky, this is Belgian sky, this is French sky. Similarly, with names and forms, you can split this whole absolute reality into tiny parts. And you can call it, this is your friend, this is your mother, this is your father, this is reality, this is dream. Fine, got no problems. But everything is Brahman, everything is our supreme consciousness, assuming different names and forms. And from there, we'll resume our discussion tomorrow. So with this, I bring it to a close and we'll do the Santi Mantras. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Tat. I'll just make one request. Feel free to pose your questions in the group so that I would be in a position to answer or sort of respond to them. Thank you all, and we'll meet again tomorrow, same time.